ჩვენი მორიგი დისკუსია ევროპის უერთების პარლამენტში ეძღვნება ქალთა ქალის როლს სოციალურ და პოლიტიკურ ტრანსფორმაციაში. მე დიდ დროს არ წაგაგრძნობთ, უბრალოდ წარმოგიდგენთ დისკუსიის მოდერატორს, ეს არის Hind Meddeb, ფრანგი ჟურნალისტი და რეჟისორი, რომელიც თავისუფლად წარმოგიდგენთ ჩვენს სტუმრებს, საინტერესო სტუმრებს. უბრალოდ დავამატებ, რომ თემა აღწერძალიან აქტუალურია, რომ გუშინ ერთ-ერთი სტუმრის ქალბატონი Nicole Bacharan-ის ციკლის პრეზენტაცია გაიმართა IRSE უნივერსიტეტში და ძალიან დიდი ინტერესი გამოიწვია. ძალიან ცოცხალი დისკუსია მოყვა ამას და მე იმედი მაქვს, რომ დღესაც ეს თემა იქნება ასეთივე აქტუალური და ასევე ძალიან ბევრ კითხვას გამოიწვევს და დავსვათ შეგვიძლია ჩვენ მონაწილეებს. დიდი მადლობა კიდევ ხელმძღვანელისთვის.
Bonjour à tous, bienvenue dans le panel pour les femmes. Alors on va parler en anglais et en français. Je vais parler en français, finalement je vais parler en anglais, finalement ce sera en français. Donc, le panel va se passer en deux parties, juste pour vous prévenir. Alors au milieu, on va faire une pause avec un débat avec le public, pour que vous puissiez ne pas trop vous ennuyer, pour que vous puissiez vraiment y avoir un échange avec la salle. On va commencer par parler des femmes et de la politique dans les pays plutôt développés, dans les pays européens, en Angleterre, en France. Les personnes qui sont ici avec nous vont partager leurs expériences avec nous sur ce point-là. Alors, et ensuite, dans un deuxième temps, on va plus parler du droit des femmes et de la lutte pour le droit des femmes et comment cette lutte continue, même dans les pays européens, où on pourrait penser tout a été fait, au contraire, tout n'a pas encore été fait. Et on élargira le débat en partant en Afghanistan avec Patricia Lalonde, qui va nous faire part de son expérience avec les femmes afghanes, qu'elle a d'ailleurs fait venir en Europe à plusieurs reprises. Alors donc on va commencer avec Nicole Bacharan, qui est historienne, chercheuse à Sciences Po, spécialiste de la société américaine et de relations entre la France et les Américains, entre la France et les États-Unis. Elle est aussi professeure invitée à l'Institut Gabay à l'Université de Stanford en Californie. Et elle est l'auteure de nombreux livres dont certains ont été des best-sellers, comme Faut-il avoir peur de l'Amérique, Américain-Arabe, l'affrontement. Et elle va nous parler d'une expérience très personnelle de la figure de sa mère, une résistante, et le rapport entre les mères et les filles, l'importance de la transmission entre les mères et les filles, sur la question justement du droit des femmes. Ça commence là, ça commence dans cette relation mère-fille, parce qu'il peut arriver que les plus conservateurs concernant le droit des femmes soient les mères, et c'est ce qui se passe aujourd'hui encore dans certains pays, par exemple en Égypte, on va en parler tout à l'heure. Je vous laisse la parole.
Yeah, we discussed with him when we were preparing this meeting, and I thought I would start on a really personal note. I was tell you a little bit about my mother, who is definitely the woman who had the biggest influence on my life and keeps having the biggest influence in my life, although she's been gone for quite a long time. My mother was born in the south of France. And when the World War II broke out, she was 15, and at the age of 18, she was living in a town in the south. And it so happened that she was working for a small Jewish business. And she was exposed, obviously, to all what was going on during those years, the German occupation, the kidnapping and deportation of Jews. And what I admired most about her was already there, obviously, as a very young girl from a small town who had not been exposed to the rest of the world, just such a strong, instinctive sense of right and wrong. And so because she happened to be, among those small Jewish group, she never wondered, oh, what should I do, what should I not do? People were talking, she knew sometimes that they were going to be roundups during the night, and so she would open her door. She had a really small apartment, and some Jewish friends or unknown people who were also Jewish would sleep there, and she never thought that maybe she was risking her life, and she was. And I know for a fact that just opening her door and not thinking any further than that, she saved quite a few lives, and she didn't think she was doing anything special. I know as well that she saved one particular life of somebody who was really dear to her, and who was, I think, 20-year-old, who did something really foolish. You know, he stole a bottle of alcohol when he had a chance to do that, and he was arrested, and he was a Jew, which was like a death sentence at the time. But he had been arrested by the French police, and again, she didn't question, is it possible to save him? She just went out there, and her goal was to make sure he would remain with the French police and not be passed on to the German Gestapo, which meant, you know, a certain death sentence. And I mean, it was 1944, and she succeeded. And later on, when she told me and my sister the story, she said, I was probably crazy. I had no idea. I mean, I had no sense of, you know, what was possible and not. And she just did it. She found a lawyer. She went to see everybody in the prison, or any kind of authority. And she thought, I would just walk in and convince them he should remain there. And, you know, he lived a long life after that, and I know she was instrumental in that. And then later on, I mean, from then on, she joined the underground movement, and she was just carrying mail from city to city, because obviously people could not use a telephone or, you know, put them in the real mail. And she was arrested. She went through a really hard time, but she could escape, and that's why my sister and I, some years later, were born. But I was always so struck by the fact she said, I wasn't a hero. I never meant to be a hero. She actually said that when she was arrested, she got so scared, and she thought, wow, maybe I'm totally in the wrong place. I'm not brave. I mean, I'm scared. You know, I'm so scared that she has so many physical reactions to the fact of being so scared. And that maybe other people who were involved in that underground movement were a lot braver than she was, but I don't think they were. I think they just did what they had to do, and you're brave when you're scared. If you're not scared, you know, there is no courage in doing anything particular. So what she passed on to me, and I don't think I live up to it, but I tried, which, you know, already something, is that sense of right and wrong. And the sense of right and wrong, that was based on a sense of, at the top of all our values, was the human being, an individual. And it didn't matter which color of skin, which religion, which age, which social class. The idea that a human life and a human being, the freedom and the dignity of that human being, the sense of defending that should guide your decisions. And when I say that in the context of women that influence their daughters, their sons, and their society, I so believe in the strong power they have to transform societies. You know, everywhere in the world, women, mothers, are in charge of keeping the family together, keeping the memories of the family, keeping the tradition, and passing them on. Any dictatorial regime who wants to destroy a group would separate the young men from the women and the mothers, because they are lost in the sense that they lose their identity a lot faster. The mothers are kind of the pillar of tradition. And most of the time it's a wonderful thing, and sometimes it's not. Some traditions need to be broken and not passed on to the daughters and the sons. I would wander a little further away from Europe and think, for instance, of sexual mutilations in Africa. They're done by the mothers, not because those mothers are evil. They don't want anything bad for their daughters, but they want their daughters to fit in. They want them to be accepted. They want them to have a husband. I mean, in most tribal societies, those women who don't find a husband, who are rejected, they have no future. They might just as well starve, they end up in prostitution. So the mothers, they mean well in a certain world order that's male-dominated. So it's very tricky. They don't do that to hurt their daughters. They do that to please the men in their group. And they think they're doing the right thing. And I think as mothers, we all need to, or as women for that matter, we don't need to have our own children. There are lots of young people out there with whom we can interact. I think we really need to step back and look at the traditions and cherish the traditions that make daughters equal beings, and just discard the traditions that make them lesser beings, less than a male. And I think that capability of stepping back, looking at the world and thinking, this is right and this is wrong, especially for my daughters, that's something we all need to cultivate and pass on. And as I will pass on the microphone to people who have been working in different countries, maybe that's one thing that in Europe, in the United States, we can share with women around the world, just through our experience or exposing them to our experience, which is not an experience that needs to be copied. I mean, there are lots of wrong things in our experience, but just exposing them to a different experience really helps to step back, look at their own society and think, this is a good tradition and this is not, and this should stop there.
Tracey Boles is city editor at the Sunday Express, et vous allez nous parler de la question des quotas dans les grandes entreprises. Donc là, il ne s'agit pas de politique mais d'économie, mais c'est aussi la question du pouvoir des femmes dans la société, de la place qu'elles ont dans la société. Et donc il y a très peu de femmes qui sont à la tête de grandes entreprises ou qu'on retrouve dans les comités d'entreprise à des postes importants. Et donc vous allez nous parler justement de la situation en Grande-Bretagne. Où est-ce qu'on en est en Grande-Bretagne avec la question des quotas et la place des femmes à la tête des grandes entreprises?
First of all, I'd like to say how much I'm enjoying being in Georgia. It's my first time here, and I think it's a great place. I'll come back again. I live this essential national newspaper in London, so I thought I'd talk about women in business. It's something I write about rather than something I do, even though my paper's business as well. And when I started thinking about this subject, the first thing that I noticed was that even though there are hundreds of companies on the stock exchange in London, there are only 3 female chief executives that I could think of out of all of those companies. One is the boss of EasyJet, which you probably heard of, an airline. Another is a massive power station, which is on the stock exchange. And there's a third lady who runs the company which owns the Financial Times, because I'm sure there are more, but the fact that I couldn't think of them, and I write about this full time, I think says a lot. And I dug a little bit deeper to see what this said. And even though in the UK women are 40% of the workforce, at board level, at senior level, they're only 16%, they have 16% representation, 1 to 6, not 6-0, which is very low. That's up from 12% last year, so it is accelerating, but it's still at a very low level. And it's a pattern that's repeated in America as well, so even in these bastions of capitalism, the women haven't got as much of a voice as you might think. The Fortune 500 richest companies in America, 1 in 9 have no women at the level at all, which I thought was extraordinary. And when you're underrepresented like that, then you just don't have a say or a voice. And I see this on my paper, where at lower level there's a lot of female reporters, junior reporters, but further up you go, it's more male dominated. By the time you get to my level, and I go into conference every day, it's 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. And I see lots of men sitting around talking about what women want to write about and to read. And I think, well, maybe you should just ask a few more, and it might become clear.